At long last, the players have complete independence. Matchroom's Emily Frazer and WPA's Ishan Singh respond. Yap delivers at the UK Open, and remembering the Rifleman. All that and more today on a new episode of Billiards Digest Live, coming at you right here, right now.
Welcome to the Ain't Peace Grand edition of Billiard Digest Live. I'm Mike Pinozzo. This very relieved pool fan to my left is Jason Bowman. Jason, I think we both wondered whether truce would ever come into WPA Matchroom discussions over players being able to play everywhere. Finally, we got our answer.
Well, it's certainly been a long and winding road, hasn't it, from the beginning of this, and I think in the end, the players obviously win, the fans win, and the sport wins. And then hopefully, each party here comes out and wins as well. I mean, that's kind of the best case scenario for everybody.
Yeah, it's a good time for pool right now. There's a lot going on, a lot to have. It's great to have everybody pulling in the same direction.
Absolutely.
Well, all's well that ends well. And on May 7, the World Pool Association and Matchroom finally ironed out all the details of their agreement to share the same sandbox by issuing a joint press release that spelled out a truce in what was, in the end, a battle for player loyalty. The key to Matchroom coming back to the bargaining table seemed to be getting all player bans from October 2024 lifted so that WNT players could continue to participate in a growing WPA calendar, and WPA players could return to the World 9-Ball Tour circuit. With the new WPA ratified label attached to WNT events, World 9-Ball Tour players are welcome back to WPA sanctioned tournaments, although they did lose previously earned WPA points and rankings. In return, Matchroom will give WPA 16 spots in the 2025 World Pool Championship, which the association will share with its federation members. A lot to absorb.
It is, and I mean, you really have to go back, several years now to kind of where this started in I guess it was
December
the
22.
Tail end of 22, and Matchroom announced that they were no longer going to seek the WPA sanctioning. It seems like it took WPA a little while to respond, but at some point in 23, they started establishing some benchmark timelines of if this isn't done by then, this will happen, and I think they kind of kicked the can at one point down the road, maybe once or twice. And, it doesn't seem like until, like you said, that last October of 24, the Hanoi Open, when, kind of a red line seemed to be crossed and both parties seemingly realized, hey, look, we need to get back to the negotiating table, need to try to find some common ground and see if we can't move this forward for everybody.
Yeah, in conflicts, it usually takes some level of pain
sure.
To finally get people to move. I think a lot of it was just shots across the bow early on. But when players started receiving bans and then players had those difficult decisions to make of how to plot out their future, then it became a little more important to both WPA and Matchroom, I believe, to try to get all this rectified and get everybody playing, because that's what we all want. It's best for the sport, it's best for the players, it's best for both organizations. So, that was a key part of it for sure.
Absolutely.
The importance of this agreement can't be overstated when it comes to the players. Bans in the Cold War between the WPA and Matchroom had made the world's top players miserable, and the continuation and escalation of the tug-of-war could have gotten uglier. But don't take my word for it. For the Matchroom perspective of the deal, and all things World 9-Ball Tour, let's bring in Matchroom pool boss, Emily Frazer. Emily, welcome. How are you?
Hey guys, I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
I know you've just gotten back from a little R&R in the Caribbean. I hope that did the trick for you.
Never R&R, but no, breaking news. I've actually decided to quit. I'm going to open my own jet ski shop in the Caribbean. I'm going to live the life.
That would be. I think you would probably do very well at that.
I think I'd be great. It'd be terrible news for the pool world, but I think I'd be over the moon. But no, it's good to be back. It's obviously I'm always just excited to get back to work, and had a couple of productive days in the office. So, and then I fly out to Saudi very shortly. So lots of planning to do. Let's
talk about Saudi. World Pool Championship coming up in July. $1 million prize fund, $250,000 for first place. Exciting stuff. All the players will be there, which is another great sign. So, you got to be excited about that.
Yeah, I think if you're not there, you've probably fallen over and hit your head. You need sort of waking up. Look, it's always exciting to go to the World Championship, and it's such a prestigious event. The hospitality, the setup was just incredible last year. And if you were in that arena, and like Mike, I know you were there yourself, there was a different like vibe in the arena. It felt so much more at stake. Obviously, financially, there is more at stake, but it just felt really, really like high pressure environment. And I always think there's quite a strong argument at the moment about the whole ranking points structure, and, with the prize money being so huge for the World Championship and those players securing their spot for 2 years. The argument for that really is that if you win that World Championship in that setting, in that environment, with that amount of money at stake, you deserve it.
Yeah.
And, that's the kind of argument. But look, super excited. Obviously, I'm heading out in the next couple of days. Lots of meetings planned. And yeah, I'm super excited for it. Lots of players lined up for it. And also we have the junior event that we'll showcase alongside. So yeah, I can't believe it's our next event, and it's going to be so hot out there, obviously, in July.
Yes, it is going to be hot in July. And you're right, it was a different atmosphere last year. You could feel the tension the minute you walked in there with the players. I mean, there just was so much more at stake, even beyond the prize money. You could just tell that they felt that this was a next level event, and that it was so important for them to do well. And you could see it by how crushed and disappointed some of the players who didn't reach that Final 8, Final 4 were when they lost that opportunity.
Yes, I mean, you even saw it with the junior event as well. So, yeah. I mean, I think I've had to console some of the juniors that were down the corridor, in tears, or if they've lost a match. But a great talking point is Felix Vogel, for example, who won that junior event, and he will now compete in the main event for the World Championship. And, at 16 or 17 years of age, that's such a monumental point in the sport for someone to have that stepping stone and have that opportunity and to go into the main arena. And I'm sure, players like Shane Van Boning would have loved to have had that kind of opportunity when he was that age. So it's just good to see how the sport's developing. And it's super exciting to see as well, and to be a part of that journey.
Yeah. So speaking of the field, let's talk a little bit about that. What can you tell us? I haven't seen a lot of details yet. Will the top 100 WNT players get automatic spots as they did last year?
Yeah, so obviously the players, like all WNT pros, are all well aware of how they qualify into these events and the cutoffs and things like that. Just because we don't put it on social media doesn't mean that they don't know about it. But
they don't tell me.
No, they're not meant to. It's confidential. No, I'm joking. No, the top 100 obviously qualified after the UK Open, the top 100 WNT pros. So we're just in the process of obviously everyone getting their visas, entry packs going out and things like that. So as soon as things are all, streamlined, there'll be announcements of player lists, when the draws are going to be out, and exciting things like that, as well as more details on the junior event too.
Yeah, great. So we are talking a lot about the agreement between Matchroom and WPA going forward, allowing all the players to play wherever they want. And part of this is the WPA, I've heard, gets 16 spots for their members for this, which would leave another dozen wildcard spots, one which goes to Felix Vogel. How will you fill out the rest of the field?
Well, obviously anything to do, I don't know who you've been talking to, Mike, but obviously I can't share. I won't be sharing anything to do with any agreements with anybody that's not supposed to get them. But look, yes, super straightforward. I think it's great that the WPA have their representatives from their different members in the World Championship.
Yeah.
Obviously, one of our main points, these last couple of years and since we launched the rankings is to really honor order of merit. And I know that obviously previous World Championships or others have been a case of, certain members get different allocations and things like that. Obviously, we firmly believe in order of merit. That's how, the snooker runs, the darts runs. So WPA get certain amount of allocations. And then obviously there are host wildcards that are also for the World Championship. So yeah, like I said, as soon as the full player list is done, that will be published like what we do with our open events. And then it will be the draw, which obviously it will be 64 seeded players versus 64 unseeded players.
Yeah, well, it's going to be exciting for sure. So let's go back to December of 2024. Getting back to the table with Matchroom and the WPA to get all this sorted out. What was different this time through? Because attempts in the past, hadn't really gone very far. What was the impetus to get this pushed through this time?
Yeah, it was interesting watching this start. I saw you do like a timeline of everything together, and I was like, wow, these guys really done their homework. I mean, listen, I'm not going to lie to you, you've missed out probably like 100 little dashes and 100 little key points in there. But look, everything's all behind closed doors. There's a reason why conversations happen like that. But I think the main focus of this entire topic is that, the players aren't really under any stress anymore. Right. And obviously that is always the biggest concern personally. And obviously from us as Matchroom is to, everyone should be able to go and work in their job, whatever that is, and enjoy it. Mm-hmm. So, I want to go to an event. I want to be able to enjoy myself. I work hard. I love what I do. I'm passionate about it. And that's the same with the players and, everyone, including the Matchroom team. Everyone should enjoy their job, right? And, but, we all live in a world, we're human, and sometimes there are challenges along the way. To go back to December 2024, I'm not going to lie to you, I barely even know what happened 2 weeks ago or 2 weeks ahead of me. But I think
I can send you the timeline.
Yeah, you can send me the timeline. I'm going to be so real. I feel like, Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston have got back together. I feel like that's the kind of newsworthy that this is, being
that's what
projected
passes for news in the billiard world.
Yeah, but I mean, nothing's really changed, to be honest. From our side, we've always been super transparent about how we stand and where we stand, that our door had always been open. It always has been. We've never been shut off from communications, from discussions. I got a lot of respect for Sean, obviously the president of the WPA. I think he's a massive advocate for Matchroom and what we do. Obviously, and obviously we're just very different entities. And at the end of the day, we see it in, at events or anything like that. If a player has a concern, or I don't know, if something happens at the event, we're a commercial entity and we can make a decision there, which is a massive positive to being a commercial entity with an organization like the WPA. Whilst, Sean's a big advocate for Matchroom, there's decisions take longer to be made, or meetings have to be put together. So things, drag out and take some time. But, at the end of the day, an agreement's been made, which is really positive news for the industry. But, for us, it's, we don't stop. We just, our whole intention along the way has been, we just got to push through. And whether it's an organization or other organizations that come in and, you know, want to try and change the direction that we're in, I know that this sport will not be global, will not be mainstream unless we make tough decisions and make the right decisions to take it forward. I know that we're the ones that will do that because we are the bigger picture. We think outside the box and we're not so pool focused, you know, we think more commercial. So for us, we're just, you know, we just got to keep pressing forward. But I just think it's great news for the players. But like I said, nothing really changed from our side. The door's always been open. Our door is always open for anyone who wants to come on board to the World Nine Ball Tour and to do events.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you know, our door's always open for new events to come on board. We're just reactive to the market. We're reactive to, you know, the demand, and our aim is just to grow this sport. You know, it's great to see the direction of the sport from, say, 5 to 8 years ago to where we are now.
Of course.
You know, there's more events that are happening. There's more prize money than there's ever been, but actual committed prize money that's being paid out. But there's the most consistency we've ever seen, which is brilliant news for the sport. But what we have to try and remember, and that's why we're here, is that we're not even close yet. Like, we're not even touching where we need to be touching in order for this to really hit the next level. Yeah. And, you know, whilst there's like loads of events being scheduled and things like that, you know, we really have to take it up a notch. And that's been our agenda, you know, the last couple of years since we, you know, launched the rankings, launched WNT. So for us, it's just about full steam ahead, like we always have been. Yeah. And just making career changing, you know, sort of, well, life changing opportunities for the players.
So, you know, scheduling obviously is going to be a big topic going forward. As you said, there's more events, there's more money, there's more to play for. You know, how do you think going forward with scheduling, we're going to be able to avoid clashes in events? How much back and forth is there going to be between you and the WPA and whoever else to try to make sure that there's some continuity to the scheduling?
I think for us all to think that, you know, no events are going to clash or anything like that would be kind of living in like a cuckoo world, because, well, like a dreamland, because that's never going to happen. You know, we have broadcasters that are tied to our events. We make decisions so we're not delayed or we're not on a red button. You know, it's super easy to schedule events when you might be on YouTube, so you don't have those broadcaster commitments. I think the main point for us is that the Moscone Cup is by far the best pool event on this planet, right? It's the most dynamic, it's the most dramatic, it's created an atmosphere and it's created a following. Now, everyone knows the Moscone Cup is roughly around the same time of the year. Now, that's taken years and years of building. Now, when you're looking ahead to the calendar, you look at October and you kind of know now, you go, right, we know October is Vietnam and the Philippines time. Like, we know we're going to have the Hanoi Open, we're going to have the Reyes Cup. Obviously, I'm flying to the Philippines next week, working on lots of things over there. So we already know October is our Southeast Asia month. So it's all about finding the right times in the year for our big events. So then there is a big following. And what I don't want you know, it's easy to sit there and think, right, don't clash with this, don't clash with that. It's really not that straightforward. Obviously, whenever we schedule anything, we look at a calendar and we say, right, we don't want to clash with other pool events, because, you know, that doesn't do any good to the industry. But also, we're 9-ball, we're solely 9-ball. We've only ever expressed that we're 9-ball. We're, you know, completely all in to that discipline, to that sport, to actually push it mainstream and globally. And we have to think like a commercial operator, and we have to think about viewership, we have to think about spectators, and we have to think about atmosphere. So for us, it's about, you know, putting the events first, really, whilst also trying to, manage other events that are coming in. But for us, it's about gaining the right time in the calendar.
Yeah.
And, everyone knowing, okay, December's coming around, it's Mosconi Cup month. That's the vibe that we follow.
Yeah. So, well, as long as we're talking about Mosconi Cup, let's talk about Mosconi Cup.
Okay.
What can you tell us? Give us something in terms of, are there going to be player captains again? What is the system going to be for automatic spots? And is it going to be a timeline like last year that goes from event to event to event? Has that been determined yet?
Well, I'm not going to lie. Like a week ago, I was thinking I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to open up a jet ski platform in the Caribbean. No, I'm joking. Obviously, we've been doing a lot of planning behind the scenes. You know what I'm like. I love officially announcing things. We love making like a big song and dance about everything. Mosconi Cup decisions have been made in terms of captains, non-playing captains, the qualification structure, and everyone will be told very soon.
When will the qualification structure be? Because players need to know pretty soon, what events are going to determine where the points are going to, determine their spot in line. So when will we hear that?
Yeah, I'm fully aware that the players need to know.
Just reminding you.
Oh, thank you so much for the reminder.
That's what I'm here for.
I love how in the same time of this interview you've said, I hope you've got some R&R, but also I'm just reminding you need to do your job better. No.
Well, that's what I'm here for.
Okay, Mike. Listen, everyone will be made aware very soon. Just got to be patient like you have been with other things in the past.
I've never been patient.
Listen, you waited how many years for the Reyes Cup and I made it happen. So
yes, you did.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. 2 other questions.
Okay. Hit me. Go.
Will the World Cup of Pool take place in 2025?
Are we in 2025 now?
Yes.
No, we're not in 2024, are we? No, it's 2025.
Will there be a World Cup of Pool this year?
What a question. I love it. Listen, announcements on the World Cup of Pool, the World Pool Masters, oh no, we haven't announced that event's happening. So I forget what we've announced and what we haven't announced. So don't try and get anything out of me here, Mike. But look, these events are happening. It's just a case of us getting the announcements out there.
Okay.
Again, you mentioned about scheduling yourself. There's a lot that goes into scheduling. Again, Sky Sports, obviously a major broadcaster here in the UK, and we've got lots of juggling to do when it comes to things like that. So as soon as everything is set and everything is in place, the announcement will be made. But the players are being kept up to date, which is the most important.
So I need to start interviewing the players.
Yeah, good luck getting anything out of them.
Well, listen, Emily, thank you so much for taking time to be with us today. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the insight and all the things you didn't tell us were going to happen. And we will look forward to seeing you in Saudi Arabia for the World Championship.
Oh, brilliant. I'll see you there. Didn't know you were going to be there, Mike. So that's great.
All right. Thanks again. Cheers.
Bye.
Jason, what'd you take away?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. She makes some good points about anytime you have 2 entities that have kind of commercial obligations, right, and different principles that they operate around and things like that. I know a lot of times the fans and maybe even the players say, well, why can't you just figure it out and make it work? But a lot of times people don't understand all the elements that are there that complicate those things. And, so I think that was a good point that just, when you have 2 entities and you all have your own interests and things that you have to make sure are met, and in Matchroom's case, TV contracts, venue contracts, things like that, it certainly presents challenges that I don't think the public is necessarily privy to.
Right.
And so there's definitely that aspect. The other big takeaway there is, although she didn't give away any firm dates or anything, it certainly sounded like the World Pool Masters and the
it did, didn't it? World Cup of Pool
should be coming back in 25. Again, I don't know if that's exactly what she was
she
alluding
dodges,
to, but
she dodges with the best
said
of
all
them.
in good time we will be announcing those events. So my takeaway there was it sounds promising, and we'll have to stay tuned.
I sure hope so, because the World Cup of Pool is one of the best events of the year, and so I'd love to see that happen.
For sure. Yeah. But, you know, at the end of the day, again, I think it's great for the players, obviously, number one, with all of this, great for the fans, and hopefully this what did you call it, this peace can hold through this truce through the years with the challenges, because there will be more challenges ahead.
Yeah, there will.
Whether that's scheduling or new events, and it may not always be WNT as part of the conversation. It could be something out of China. It could be, you know, the WPA obviously is going to sit in kind of the middle of the conversation, but there are going to be promoters coming from different angles, especially if the growth of pool continues to be successful on the global stage. There's going to be more coming to the table, and so you know, it may not always be pretty, but hopefully at the end of the day things can be worked out like they have been here.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, it's great to see them discuss, you know, working together, period.
Yes.
On the flip side, we also got a chance to sit down with WPA President Ishan Singh for his thoughts on the agreement and what it means going forward. Welcome, Ishan Singh, WPA President. Thank you for joining us. You and I have been talking in the background a lot over the last number of months, trying to keep track of what's been going on, and finally we got the resolution that we were looking for. You know, for starters, I'll ask you some of the same questions I asked Emily at Matchroom, and it starts with, why was this round of talks different than previous? Was it just the matter that, you know, push had come to shove and people were being penalized now, and so it became, you know, there was more at stake for each player?
I think it was a combination of those kind of facts. But I would say both Matchroom and the WPA probably have, I know on our end we received numerous inquiries about what players can play and what they can't play in. And Matchroom probably was experiencing the same things. So as I mentioned before, I think when Matchroom, in this case, this time around, they reached out to us.
Okay.
And I was really happy when they did.
Now, the primary thing that they wanted to get accomplished was to have the player bans lifted so that players could participate in events, WNT and WPA. You know, what was the give and take? What were the compromises that allowed you and your members to agree to do that?
Mike, I think the negotiations, it started off very basically.
Right.
In fact, in the original, let's say, get-together, Mr. Barry Hearn said to us, all right, it's very simple. Basically, him and I agreed on some just broad principles, and we said, let the legal team put it down to paper. Well, from December, as you know, the agreement only got reached or signed just a few weeks back. So what was supposed to be very simple turned out to be really complicated in the end. And the complications stretched on our side. There were delays because Matchroom's request to have the player bans lifted and the fines that were imposed to be waived. We, WPA, didn't have the authority to do that, so we had to go back to our members to get that approval. And each of our 6 members kind of had different opinions on just about everything. So it was it became very complicated in the end to achieve which was basically having all the players to be able to play in all the events that they want, and not have those suspensions that was created with the licenses.
Yeah, well, your members, obviously, it's a very passionate group, and there's a lot at stake for them, and they've got a lot of pride in their federations and things of that nature. How hard, I know you really wanted to see this deal happen, how hard was it for you to get all of those members with their disparate, interests and things that they really wanted out of the agreement. How did you manage to get them all on the same page?
Well, actually, it was really difficult because we have, let's call it a two-step process. We, the board itself, needed to be on the same page. And as you know, my board is made up of members from all around the world as well. So that took a little bit of debates and discussions and working out what can be done. But I think the few of us that were supporting the concept were able to convince the rest that this was the right way to go. Yeah. The next step was then to go to the members. That was the difficult part. Each of our members have been influenced by the Matchroom events differently. So each one had a different and unique view on it. In general, some of our members, I'm not going to mention names in here, but some of the members were totally against the WPA making this, trying to work out an arrangement based on the fact that we attempted a few times before that. And at the end, it was Matchroom who then made it clear that they're not going to deal with the WPA. So some members took that on that value and felt that we should just go on because we got into the mess and just go on, like that. And some of them felt very strongly towards that effect because they were harmed so badly. Because divisions, we all know, the world knows that every continent, everywhere players were divided. So there was that feeling that was going around, and let's say some of them were hurt in different ways. Some people financially, others, let's call it their ego, pride. I don't know what it was, but we had a massive uphill battle. A lot of it was understandable, but like I said, in the end, it was largely me. I put my neck on the line. I told all the members just a few months ago when we had our General Assembly, I basically pleaded to the members to give me the authority to do this deal with Matchroom and let us build from there. Because we have done some very good work, I think we gained some credibility, and then the members gave us that freedom to conclude the deal, which we have then done.
Yeah, well, it's obviously a great thing for everybody. Big part of this deal, the language around it, looking at these events now as ratified instead of sanctioned. And you've explained before that ratified is something that you've come up with for other promoters that you work with that allow them to kind of still run the event by their rules, the way they want to do it, but still have the ability to use all the players, to invite all the players to do it. What was the main reason that Matchroom and WPA decided to have events that were ratified as opposed to sanctioned? And who preferred that scenario?
It was something that was introduced by me to Matchroom. They were obviously not aware of the ratification and as an alternative. And the WPA only recently came about it. It started from companies in China wanting to play events on what we would call Chinese pool tables. And they got a game called, I think it's like a 10-ball game, Indigo 10. They've got the Golden 9. Anyway, they've got variables of the 8-ball, 9-ball, 10-ball game. And they are promoting events and they want international players to play in it. So because its rules are not in the WPA structure currently, and it is run totally by them from start to finish, they really have nothing to do with the WPA from that point of view. But they want our players, the international players, that is, to participate. So we came up with a concept of ratifying, basically allowing a lot more freedom compared to the sanctioning process. And some of our existing promoters also have new concepts that they want to implement and do. Um, and this would then give them the like a leeway to do it without causing any problems for athletes. So when I offered that, largely Matchroom, as you know, it's been announced. Barry said they want to do their thing. They know what they're good at doing what they do, and they really don't want to be told or bossed by anybody else. And I think this ratification it's not perfect, but it finds that middle ground to allow a promoter to do certain things.
Right.
And I think that's how the Matchroom took that opportunity. Obviously, we presented it and they accepted it.
Okay. One last question, and that is, an obvious concern going forward as the landscape gets broader and bigger for all these tournaments and promoters around the world. Date conflicts are certain to pop up. How is that going to be handled? Is that something that you guys addressed actually in the agreement, or is the WPA going to take on the role of being mediator and helping, work these date conflicts through so that it doesn't hurt one tournament over another?
Yes, this had the most amount of discussion because it was obvious and evident with the number of events coming up around the world. Date clashes, it's just going to be a thing. When I took on this position, it was a topic that we had and discussed that the WPA saw that we won't be able to avoid date clashes at the rate of growth that's been on. So whilst I plan on being the mediator between our promoters, we just signed the agreement, which now we've got the Matchroom calendar added to our existing calendar, and there's already a whole bunch of events that was planned and already on that. We started, our sports director has been nonstop at it, speaking to promoters, speaking to Matchroom, speaking to the other promoters to see how we could move a day or two, to avoid these clashes. But as per you spoke about the wording in the contract, it is us to do our best endeavor at preventing clashes, and that we certainly will do. But as you know, Mike, it's some of them cannot be prevented. What I am hoping is that the problems we experience for the rest of this year could be rectified from next year and the following year by our promoters giving us dates early. It's because then it'll be easier for us to protect somebody's date. And the way we see it, we really need to protect what one would consider majors, in our sport. There's going to be events around the world that will still take place, what the WPA calls its lower category events. Nowadays, the under the $60,000 added prize money sector, there's going to be a bunch of those kind of events that may clash, certainly. But our major events, we'll try and get our promoters to separate dates so that the athletes can get the chance to play in the best events.
Well, good luck with that. I think that juggling calendars is going to take up most of your time in the coming years. But in the meantime, I'm certainly, we're all certainly happy that an agreement's been reached, and the players happier than anyone that now they can just look ahead at the calendar and pick and choose the events they want to go see. So congratulations on that to you and the WPA for helping to work that out with Matchroom. And Ishan, thank you very much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time.
Right. Thank you, Mike.
Very interesting. I mean, a completely different conversation than we had with Emily, but a lot of detail, a lot of information, and background of how the agreement came together and what it all meant.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely gave you a deeper look into kind of how these negotiations came out. And what was really interesting to me is first, the fact that he mentioned it was actually Matchroom or WNT that came to WPA at the end of last year and said, hey, let's try to sort through this, which I thought was fascinating because, again, early on in this saga, if you will, to me at least, it really looked like Matchroom held all the cards. they had the players professing their loyalty, and
Yeah.
it wasn't until we got into last October and Josh Filler pulls out of the Hanoi event, and subsequently they pull him off the roster for the Reyes Cup and ultimately the Mosconi Cup. You had a couple others, and I'm sure there were more players in that, but those were very public situations. So I found that very interesting that Matchroom decided to come back to the negotiating table, because at one point it looked like there wasn't necessary for them. They could kind of operate independently, but also him talking about having to convince the members of the WPA and the effort that took. I mean, when you talk about things from the WNT or Matchroom side, I mean, it's Barry Hearn. If Barry says it's good, then it's good.
Right.
It doesn't have to be lobbying
a little more
amongst a group
nimble.
of people. Whereas with the WPA, you've got to convince several other people that, and it sounds like there were some that still were somewhat opposed to what was happening here. But really, for me, the most interesting takeaway, and we heard the term ratification or ratified events, and we could talk a little bit more about that, but is to me the impact, because he said that first came up through the negotiations with China
Chinese
and the
promoters,
Hayball events.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting that never was on the table between WPA and Matchroom until China comes along and says, hey, we've got a lot of money, we've got some ideas, we want to do some things, how do we make it happen?
Yeah.
And a solution was found, and that solution ultimately plays a key role in this ending this saga between WNT and WPA, and so very interesting.
Yeah, it was
information there.
I think that a lot of that, we talked about this before. I think the discussions between WPA and Matchroom were adversarial, as opposed to the discussions between WPA and the Chinese promoters was more, how do we work this out? And I think that's why it took them longer to get to this spot of saying, why don't we create something called ratification, a classification? And really, we looked at our timeline before, and if you look back to 2022 in December, when Barry Hearn went on, a podcast right then and at the Mosconi Cup in Las Vegas and said, we're not going to sanction anymore because we want to run things the way we want to run them. We know what we want to do. We're starting this tour. We run it as a business. We don't want to have to answer to anyone else. And that's essentially what the ratification classification accomplishes for them.
Yeah.
So it was always there in front of them. It just took Chinese promoters to kind of get the WPA to come up with this kind of solution, and then it fit in very nicely with the Matchroom program, which was, let us just run on our event, kind of stay out of our way, let the players play, and let's make everybody happy. So that part of it, I think, was very interesting.
Somebody needs to send a gift basket over to China, because without the the common ground there, it seems to solve a lot of issues. Now, it was also interesting because he said they have some other promoters that are wanting to do some other things that maybe don't fit within the programs that they have established. And so, to me, what I took away from that is it sounds like WPA is evolving a little bit, becoming a little more working with the promoters to kind of get things, just not so rigid in what they. It must be like this. You must follow these guidelines. And hopefully in time that really is a good thing, not just for WNT, WPA, but just pool in general, because there will be other promoters as the global scene continues to grow amongst the sport.
I have been, over the years, a big supporter of the WPA in terms of its reason for being. I always believed in it. I believe they were important. I still do. I was very anti-WPA for many years with the way they were running things. And so it is very encouraging to me and refreshing to me to see this new WPA take a broader look at things. It's nice. I think it certainly helps that they've got some deep pocket partners like Hayball, giving them the money that will allow them to be a better organization, I believe, going forward. And I would have to give a lot of credit to Ishan Singh, the president of WPA, who's been in for just 2 years now, for kind of righting the ship a little bit. You talked at the beginning about how WPA members were not all on board with this, and how, what kind of tap dance he had to do to get them to all play ball. And I give him a lot of credit for that, because there are a lot of those federations that just wanted to thumb their nose at Matchroom by this point, and there are a lot of federations who demanded certain things from this agreement, like getting their spots back in the World Pool Championship, things like that. And some of those demands, from what I understand, were really strong-handed at the beginning, and Ishan got them to kind of be a little more realistic and let's find a middle ground where we can all live, and that happened. So I give WPA and particularly Ishan a lot of credit for having the Matchroom deal squared away, and then for moving forward with all these opportunities through Chinese promoters and other promoters around the world. It's a really good time for pool right now, and it's encouraging to see the WPA kind of come up with the times.
Yeah,
right?
And I'm happy that you mentioned Ishan and kind of his role in this, because I felt like early on, I mean, he kind of took a little bit of a beating. He's the public face,
he did
and a lot of people said, you know, really
I had a
put
stick
a lot
at
of
one
blame
point.
on WPA,
Yeah.
and so you know, I think it's good for him. You know,
I think he's
positive.
listened,
Yeah.
which is important. Not that
Yeah.
we were always right, but I think he took a lot of the criticism to heart and really evaluated where they were at and what they were doing, and it's been very helpful.
Yeah, now both of them, both Emily and Ishan, both. I know you asked the question, kind of spoke to scheduling and how do
Right.
we, and I do think that will be the biggest test in this.
Yeah.
In this peace or this truce or whatever, however you want to term it, is because eventually that will become an issue. It's just very difficult when you're talking about new events, new venues. You've got Matchroom. I mean, she heard Emily talk about TV, which is a whole nother element, you know, in scheduling, and it's not because somebody's always looking to step on somebody else's toes. It's just maybe that
Business
that's
is
the
business.
window that's
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and we've got to do the event when we can do it. And I do think that will be a challenge going forward. Hopefully, like you said, the majors can steer clear. I think
Yeah.
there's certainly going to be overlap at some point with events. There's just not
There's
enough
going to be
days in the year. But I do think that will be the true test of whether this piece holds long term.
It will be, and I liked what Emily said too, though, because you see them trying to say, okay, if it's December, it's Moscone. If it's October, we're in Southeast Asia. If it's August, we're in the U.S. If they can start, it takes time to develop that consistency of location and time of year. If they can get to that point, then planning a year out becomes a little easier.
Yeah.
And then you can see other promoters say, okay, if October is Southeast Asia with these big Matchroom events and we want to run a World 10-Ball Championship or some other big pool event, run it in Southeast Asia in another part of October or the end of, you can start to get a global schedule put together realistically where people can be and players can be in one spot for a period of time and play in a number of events. In a perfect world, that would be a great solution.
Well, we'll see how it shakes out, but I don't know what we're going to talk about in terms of pool politics for a while. It seems
I think we can drum something up.
Maybe we'll talk about some actual play, right?
We will.
Some actual play.
Let's do that. The May 7th announcement came during the UK Open in Telford, a World 9-Ball major tournament for which the WPA had granted a good faith waiver to all players, as they had for the March European Open, which was promptly won by famously ignored German star Josh Filler in convincing fashion. In Telford, Filler looked to be an even heavier favorite, with top 10 players Vedder Gorst, Shane Van Boning, Francisco Sanchez Ruiz, and the Coe brothers all having to bow out due to contractual obligations to attend a billiard expo in China. But a funny thing happened on the way to the crown, with American Moscone Cup veteran Tyler Styer playing an almost flawless set against the German in the round of 32, toppling Filler 10-8. It was a statement win for the 30-year-old Wisconsin native, and one that he continued to build on. Styer would go on to top Japan's Naoki Oi and Viktor Zielinski of Poland to reach his first ever semifinal in a major international open. But Styer wasn't the only surprise in the UK Open Final Four, as he was joined by Spanish whiz kid Jonas Soto, last year's surprise European Open champion Mickey Kraus of Denmark, and Singapore's Aloysius Yap. In fact, with Soto just 23, Kraus 24, and Yap 29, Styer was the old man in what appears to be rapidly becoming a young man's game. Soto, already victorious in a pair of WNT ranking events in 2025, earned his way into the Final Four, following a 10-3 demolition of UK poster boy Jason Shaw, and Kraus sneaked past relatively unknown British snooker transplant Fraser Patrick 10-7. Yap, meanwhile, was the class of the field from start to finish. The back-to-back International 9-Ball Open champion and Reyes Cup MVP cruised into the last 64, then eliminated close friend and defending UK champ Robbie Capito and Nicholas Tan. In the round of 16, Yep put on a clinic during a 10-2 thrashing of Filipino star Carlo Beato, and in the quarterfinals, he topped Vietnam's Nam Phan Phong 10-3. Soto, the entertaining, fun-loving, and quick-learning understudy to Spanish legends David Alcaide and Francisco Sanchez Ruiz, then earned his first major title match appearance with a sound 10-5 victory over Kraus. In the other semifinal, Styer and Yap staged a back-and-forth battle that saw Styer edge ahead at 8-7. That's when Yap recovered from almost certain defeat, aided by an outrageous fluke that allowed him to retie the match. With new life, Yap pulled himself together and motored through the next two racks to earn his spot in the finale. While coming so close left Styer disappointed, he contends even better days are ahead, as he shared in a post-event interview with us. Welcome back to the States, Tyler. Good to be home.
Yeah, it's great to be home. Weather's beautiful here in Wisconsin. May is always nice here. So, good to just kind of be back and relax after a long week.
So now that you've had time to kind of, decompress a little bit, absorb, what you all went through last week, what did you take away from your third place finish?
The week was very similar to the Kremlin Cup that I had, where just kind of slowly eased into the tournament, and as you go on, when you travel overseas, it's really hard to have your A game from day one, just because of just different food, different sleeping patterns and stuff like that. So the tournament really doesn't start until the last 64, and you're just trying to make it to day one really by grinding out the first couple days, which I didn't do very well. I lost my first match, and then I think I won 4 or 5 in a row to qualify. And then, it's just a one ball at a time, process there. I'm just trying to get the speed of the tables and kind of feel everything out and just bring your best to the table every match, I guess you could say.
So you got into the final 64, you won your first match relatively handily, and then you're up against Josh in the 32. What did you tell yourself going into the match? Do you approach a match like that any differently than you would against someone else in terms of getting yourself ready?
You definitely try to get as much sleep as you can the night before. That's like knowing you have to play Josh the next day.
How did that work out?
it's Saturday. I did not sleep well. I was still pretty amped up after the Zelensky match, but I saw the draw. I figured I'd be playing Josh if I won. When you play Josh, it's or Federer or Shane or Sanchez, right, or any of the top 5 guys, Ko Ping Chung or Ko Ping Yi, Shaw. This is going to sound weird, but it's almost kind of easier because you already know what you have to do. You have to play perfect, right? Where against not everybody, you have to play perfect to win a match. So mentally, it's actually a little bit easier because you already know what you have to do. You got to hit every shot perfect, which sounds really weird.
No, it doesn't, because it makes it sound like, it forces you to really focus on, use laser focus on every shot you take, every decision you make.
Yeah, exactly. It's a weird thing. But I feel like I would get burned out if I treated every match as if I was about to play one of those top players, right, because it takes so much out of you. But you do know what you have to do when you draw one of those guys, for sure.
You played great, got a lead on him, and then he did what Josh does, and that's never give up and get back to even and pull ahead. What's going through your mind? I mean, it was really, a lot of times people beat a Josh or someone like that, and they caught them on a bad day or something like that. That was a really well played match by both of you. So when he starts coming back, and God, then he pulled ahead 8-7. How are you keeping yourself dialed in?
I scratched on the break 2 rails in the side, up 7-4, I think it was.
Right.
And I mean, is it a mistake? Yeah. It's not like it kissed off another ball. It did go 2 rails straight in the side, which was a mistake on my part, but it wasn't really a mental mistake. It wasn't something that I can really get too upset about myself. And I believe the furthest anybody got against Josh at the European Open was 6. I think they got 6 games. That was the closest match he had in the whole tournament, which is pretty gross, actually. But I just kept telling myself, just keep pressure on him towards the end. And even though he's Josh, he can still crack. You know what I mean? He can still make a mistake, especially if you get it 8-8, 9-9, whatever. He can make a mistake just like all of us under pressure, but it doesn't happen very often, obviously. But I was just trying to, and I tell Margaret that all the time, like just try to get it to be 6-6, 7-7, wait for the mistake. It doesn't always come, but when you're playing a good player, you just kind of have to make it as close as you can, and just fight for that last game or 2.
And then that mistake came.
Yeah, I got fortunate. He hit the break perfect. He went 2 rails off a ball on the side. I actually had that exact same break twice against Brabin in the last 64 match, where you go under the 9, over the 9, carry him off a ball straight in the side. It was like if you were to overlap both breaks,
it would look pretty similar.
It would be the cue ball would do the same thing, 2 rails off the ball on the side, and it came at the perfect time. And I was able to capitalize and finish him off.
You never got another shot. So I mean, that's about as if you tell yourself, here's my opportunity, don't ever let him get back to the table, and you actually pull it off, that's pretty special. So Final Four, first semifinal of a Matchroom event for you, deepest you've gone. Actually, Final 8 was deepest you've gone in a Matchroom Open event. And you come up on Yap, who's such a great player, such a smooth player. Great match. It gets to 8-7, I believe, when he fluked in a ball that kind of turned the match.
Yeah, I made a couple mistakes though, where it never should have been that close. To be honest, I got lazy in one run out where I missed the 8 in the upper right corner from where you would rack the balls. Never should have missed that ball. It wasn't the ball that I missed that I'm upset about. I mean, obviously you're not supposed to miss it, but I got really lazy on the 6. Right. And from the 6 to the 7 was weird. 7 to the 8 was weird, which made me play a tougher shot to get on the 9. It was just a shot where the balls are wide open. You kind of relax a little bit, and then it bites you in the ass. So
expectations going into the next tournament, do they all of a sudden amp up?
I think it'll put everybody on watch a little bit. Like, okay, Tyler's a threat, just like Mickey came out of nowhere. Sanchez came out of nowhere kind of before he went on his run. And I've actually looked up to Sanchez a little bit the last 3-4 years, because you see guys like Josh and Zielinski, these like young guys that just start winning tournaments in their early 20s, and it's just like, damn, like when's my time gonna come? You know what I mean? But you can't compare yourself to these guys. Everybody has their own journey, and I think Sanchez was always deep in tournaments, but he just never really got through. And then 29, 30, 31 years old, right around there, he just kind of took off. So just kind of teaches you to stay patient. Your time will come if you keep putting in the hard work and following the process. And hopefully my time is right around the corner.
Great. Well, I appreciate your time, and good luck at the World Championship, and hope the rest of the year goes as well as the start of the year has.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate it.
Great event for Tyler Styer. Meanwhile, the UK Open title match was sweet redemption for Yap, who had lost the 2023 US Open semifinal against Ping Chung Ko 13-0 in a match in which Ko pocketed every ball. In Telford, Soto was the recipient of Yap's revenge, with the Husky Singapore running out from the break 8 times and building a 12-0 lead. Soto salvaged the game, but Yap closed the door for good with yet another timely fluke to cement a 13-1 victory. Humble as always, the new champion shared his reaction and goals going forward after returning home to Singapore. So welcome, Aloysius. Congratulations on the UK Open win. Big win for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's my first major title, I guess, other than the International Open, which I feel like it's a major also because the field is really tough.
Oh yeah, the International Open is right up there with any of the Matchroom Open events. So yeah, big title.
Yeah, but it's nice to finally be able to win a big one like live on TV. So yeah, it means a lot.
So what's the difference in winning a major Matchroom WNT title to something like the International? I mean, the field is just as good, the competition is just as stiff. Is it the atmosphere? Does that add more pressure? Does that make it more exciting?
I feel like playing wise, because they're both such tough fields, it definitely feels like equally as tough. But I would say like knowing that you're playing live on television, it's a whole different feel, you know, and you know that everybody is watching it live, and then like if after I won a match or if I lose a match, my friends will be like messaging me, hey, you know, I saw this shot, you made a mistake here, and then or you played good here. Yeah, so it just feels like the magnitude of the situation just feels a lot like bigger. So winning a Matchroom event.
Yeah, so from that standpoint, you played in the Reyes Cup, which was also internationally shown and a lot of pressure and live on television. How much did that help you mentally for, you know, when you stepped into the arena in this final?
It helped a lot because I got a small taste of what it felt like playing in the final match, you know. Right. So I felt a lot more ready, I guess. Yeah. It's like I knew what to expect, and then I also know that Jonas is playing good. But I just felt like so ready to play the final after I won Tyler in the semis. It's just like it's something like the feeling was something like the Reyes Cup when I just felt completely in the zone. I just couldn't, like nothing went through my mind except just the table and the balls again.
What was in front of you?
Yeah.
Well, and it showed because you won 13-1 and ran, you know, 8 racks during those 13 wins. And so you just were so confident and so at ease at the table. It's got to be a great feeling.
Yeah, for sure. It's a really great feeling. And also my break only worked in the final match also. Like I was struggling so much with the break at the earlier rounds. And then I basically watched everyone and learned like how they break. I watched how like Tyler broke, how Joshua was breaking, how Robbie was breaking. And I tried to study like a common pattern. Yeah. And then I tried to work out. Yeah.
So let's go through your road to the finals. You know, you won 3 games in the qualification stage right away, 3 matches. I think you only gave up 10 games in those 3 matches. You were really dominant in the early stage. And then in the final 64, you played your good friend Robbie. You know, and that was a close match. You know, and then you ran over Carlo Beato. Yeah. And against Tyler Styer in the final 4, you trailed early on, and then it got to be very close. You got a little bit fortunate toward the end of that match. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I know me and Tyler, I had like a good start against Tyler. I think I was up 3-0. And then I kind of forgot what happened. I think I played a bad save or something, or like I broke dry or something, and then I lost the exchange. And then it was quite scrappy after that. I think he missed an 8 ball, and then I broke dry again, and then I missed something. and then he missed a couple of banks also. So it was pretty scrappy up till that point, and then he pulled the lead, I think, halfway through. I think it was like 4-4, and then he got it to 7-4 or something.
Right.
And then, yeah, that during that period, I was like just hoping for just one more chance. And then, like, I think at 8-7, that's when I fluked the kick on the two ball. Then I just felt like, like something clicked, I just felt like that's my chance and I have to really use it well and I have to just take it to the end.
Yeah.
It just something in my mind just like clicked, like God is telling me this is the chance, So
Yeah.
you have to make sure you use it well.
If he gives you a fluke like that, you have to take advantage of it. You're obligated.
Yeah, yeah. I feel bad after the match, but during the match, I just felt like, I just felt that was the time, after I fluked the two. It just felt like it's my time.
And then in the final, it certainly was your time. As we said, you won 13-1. It was never a question of who was going to win that match. You played beautifully. And then you climbed on the table. I was surprised. I wasn't sure you were going to climb on the table.
I hesitated, man. I was really afraid like the table would break or something. I'm serious, or like maybe I'll fall down or something. So I hesitated when I told myself like, if I don't jump now, I don't know if I will ever win again. So better to do it.
So you're off to a really great year. I mean, you closed out last year winning the International Open, which was actually part of this year's points. You finished second in the Scottish Open right before the UK. You lost to Mickey Krause in the final. You also were fifth at the Premier League pool event and ninth in the European Open. So you've been in the top 10 in everything you played this year. What's the difference been?
I would say it's mostly equipment, and I've been doing like a bit of exercise. I mean, I've been eating real bad in Europe, so I put on a couple like a few kilos now. But yeah, I think equipment wise, I finally switched to carbon. So like my new sponsor Universal, I got them to make me like a custom carbon shaft, and then I finally feel like I like the way it plays. So I think that made a huge difference in my confidence. Like there were a lot of shots I used to struggle, but with the shaft that I have now, it's like I hit the ball so much easier. Yeah. So that does give me a lot of confidence.
For a lot of players, it takes them a good 6 or 8 months to get used to new equipment, playing all the different shots. Has it been easy for you, or did it take time?
Not exactly. I always try to find like something similar to how I used to play with my old cue, or something that I really like. So I like cues that have a little bit of deflection. So I got Universal to make me something that's similar. And then I always change, it's quite well known in the scene, like I always change the weight of my cue like every tournament I play. So I'm trying to do it. Yeah, I'm trying to do it lesser now, but I've been like changing the weights of my cue every match.
Yeah, so, Tyler was telling me that you do that a lot. Even you could win 13-1 and you'll change the weight for the next match.
Yeah, I just switched to a new cue but now. So after I came back, I wasn't even playing with my own cue from the last 64 onwards.
Okay.
I borrowed my coach cue, so Hans play cue. I borrowed it to play the last 64 to the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, coming up for you, next big event on the agenda is the World Pool Championship in Saudi Arabia. You're playing, as I said, really well this year. Are your expectations high for the World Championship?
I mean, for sure, I would love to do really well in it, but I'm trying to keep my expectations low, but it doesn't mean that I don't have expectations. But I'm just gonna focus on just really trying to do my best and make sure that I at least don't doubt myself when I play the event. That's like one big goal that I have.
Is to be more confident and sure of yourself.
Yeah, because last year I doubted myself so much, and then it just felt horrible. Like after each event, I just felt worse and worse mentally until the Reyes Cup. So it's kind of like my goal for this year, like to trust myself more and believe in myself a lot more.
Well, you've got a lot of reason to believe in yourself right now. You're really playing well. Congratulations again on the UK Open
Thank
win,
you.
and we wish you the best
Thank
of
you.
luck at the World Championship.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So there's your champion, Aloysius Yap. Came in first with Jonas Soto finishing second. Tyler Styer and Mickey Kraus tied for third in that lineup of young players. Interesting stuff from Tyler and from Aloysius.
Yeah, nice follow up to the Reyes Cup for Aloysius. I mean, he's on fire. We'll see if that follows him to Saudi Arabia in July and how he does there. But from my perspective, love seeing Tyler Styer finish in the top 4 in this event. And did we call him the old man of the group? Because for me, that's a little frightening. He's 30 years old.
Yeah, well, get in line, buddy.
Yeah, it's great. You go back to 2018. You just kind of waited to see him break out in one of these major events, and would have loved to have seen him make it to the final or even win it. But top 4 with a big win over Josh Filler, certainly something for him to build off of, and hopefully some positive momentum for Team USA fans.
Yeah, I mean, we've been waiting for Tyler to come through, and it's been a little bit frustrating. I'm sure it's been more frustrating for him than anyone that his breakthrough hasn't been sooner. But what I did like, and he kind of alluded to it, was we've seen young American players beat a top player before, but sustaining that is tough. Yeah. And he talked about how playing someone like Josh, you have to have such focus and be perfect on every shot, and that it's difficult to go through every match like that because it takes so much out of you. Well, he had to go through it because when he beat Josh, that was around at 32. He still had Naoki Oi ahead of him. He still had Victor Zielinski ahead of him, and he had to come up with that same type of focus and perfection in those matches to reach that semifinal. Yeah. So credit to him for being able to do that 3 matches in a row. That's to me a big step forward to progress of a young player like that. And we'll see the World Championships, right on the heels of that. So we'll see how he follows it up. Aloysius Yap, just a great young player, was a World Junior champion, so he's been a prodigy for some time. And he alluded to it as well. His confidence has not always been at peak form, and he doubts himself sometimes, which is a shame and kind of confusing to me because his game is so beautiful and so solid. He's such a good player that if he gets that confidence level high, he could go on a pretty good run himself because he is one of the most talented players out there.
Yeah, some great players, and they just continue to emerge. It seems like I would like to see a few more Team USA guys.
You'd like to see some younger American players. Some
names that I haven't really been seeing much: Fedor Gore, Shane Van Boning. Sky Woodward, it's like, where are they? What are we doing these days?
The World Championship will be a good measuring stick.
We'll see.
Yeah. Well, just in case you needed more proof that the talent pool around the globe is insanely deep, here are the current WNT rankings. And look at that top 5. Names like Yap and Soto and Newhausen, along with the ageless Niels Fayen, all snapping at the heels of Mosconi Cup and Reyes Cup spots. There's 5 Europeans in that top 10 who are under 27 or younger, which is a scary thought.
Team USA fans, it certainly is. Yeah.
But it's great to see players like Labutis in there, to see players like Moritz in there and Jonas in there. Those are all great young players that have a huge future in this sport. And believe me, there's a lot of top players who've been at the top for a number of years. The David Alcades, the Francisco Ruizes, the players like Shane, Sky, guys like that. They have to look over their shoulders because these guys are coming hard.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Only one American on that list at number 10, and he's by way of Russia. So
yeah, well,
again, hopefully World Championship we got some more Americans making noise.
We'll hope so.
Yeah.
Well, while most of the news over the past month was positive, the pool world also suffered a huge loss when 9-ball legend Buddy Hall passed away May 22nd in his hometown of Metropolis, Illinois. Hall was a week short of his 80th birthday. Buddy Hall was two-time U.S. Open champion, International 9-Ball Classic champion in 1991, which then came with a record $33,000 top prize, and two-time Caesar Tahoe Classic champion. He was also twice named Billiards Digest Player of the Year. A burly man with fists like ham hocks, Hall nonetheless finessed the cue ball around the table with the lightest of touches. And it was his precise and meticulous cue ball control that earned him the admiration and respect of all the game's top players. Yeah, he was, I know that he was a little past his prime when you were coming in, but he was a top-notch star.
Yeah, he's not one of the guys that I knew personally. Obviously knew of him, and I kind of got in the industry in April of 2000. I think he was still playing on the Camel Pro Tour back then, if I'm not mistaken. But I think probably his prime was just a little before that. But certainly well aware of the name and well aware of the respect that he held throughout the pool world. And anytime we lose one of these great Hall of Famers, it's tough. Especially from that era where today we've got all the streaming, or you've got the Matchroom coverage, or the world kind of has this documented history.
Right.
Thank goodness Billiards Digest was around. Thank goodness AccuStats
AccuStats
to document
videos.
some of these accomplishments for some of these guys that had these stellar careers and just didn't have, that the sport was not necessarily what it was today.
Yeah, it wasn't a global sport. It was an American sport during his heyday. Yeah. And certainly in the U.S., he was as well known as any player. But internationally, younger players probably don't know a lot about him because he wasn't, a Mike Siegel, he wasn't an Earl Strickland, one of those guys who traveled around the world, went to international tournaments, played in the World Championship in Germany or in Moscone Cups. Buddy Hall didn't like to travel a lot. He never went to the international tournaments, although he certainly could have because he was still, playing at a high level in the mid to late 90s. I mean, he won the U.S. Open Championship in 1998. He was 53 years old. And this is when everyone was still at the top of their game. They had a lot of Hall of Famers at the top of their game in 1998, and Buddy Hall was still winning the U.S. Open, which at that time was the tournament to win. So, hopefully people go back and take a look through some AccuStat videos of Buddy Hall, because that's what all the top players did back in the day. Yeah. And if you remember, Jason, back in July, we polled a bunch of the game's top players on who they would pick as their top 10 American players of the last 50 years. All of them had Buddy in the conversation. All of them had Buddy in their top 5. And let's take a look at some of their responses.
I had Buddy Hall. Buddy Hall, of course, probably maybe number one if he could break the balls like some of them other guys. Not saying he couldn't break, but it was one thing that probably kept him from winning a few more tournaments at times. But after the break, of course, we all talk about, when I say everyone, maybe not Efren, I don't know, but I know I've heard some great things about Buddy out of Efren's mouth before, but every other American always talks about being able to play the rack like Buddy Hall. And I think if today's generation got to see him a little more in his heyday, they'd be saying the same thing.
Oh, awful tough. And Buddy, and like I said, Buddy was like Mike and kind of like Nick, but Buddy started way back, probably in the mid 70s and so. Right. And boy, what a big, cool walking cat he was, man. They said he was a slow player, but Buddy would move around the table just a little slow, a little deliberate. But when he got down to shoot, Buddy was right there, and he pulled the trigger pretty quick. He wasn't that slow of a player. He just walked around the table a little slow, And he had the straightest arm bridge of anybody I've ever seen as a pool player. His left arm, when he bridged, it was so straight. I mean, it was straight as a string, and he was a fierce player.
Probably the best position player on earth, especially in 9-ball. I mean, usually, within a foot to the next object ball. Also very smooth player, great stroke, so he's definitely on there.
I put Buddy Hall next. I mean, Buddy, the rifle, my dad told me, like, one of the things my father always told me, he always tried to analyze Buddy. You know, the way he strikes the cue ball was always the same. And everything my dad's like, oh, Buddy Hall did this, Buddy Hall did that. I'm like, geez, all right, Dad, I got it. Buddy Hall did a lot of great things, great. I mean, he's just a legend. I got to see him play a little bit later in his career, so I really didn't get to see him play in his prime. So, you know, I feel like I missed out a little bit, but it's nice to at least have those old AccuStats tapes to relive the glory days.
Hard to miss the respect and admiration that these guys all had for Buddy Hall and his game.
Yeah, and just a reminder, that was from last July, so, you know, that was input from some of the greats of the game about, you know, the top 10 or top 5 players. So to hear them talk with that kind of admiration about Buddy Hall is certainly a cool thing, and hopefully something that his, you know, family and his friends and those that you know knew him best are able to kind of appreciate now that he has unfortunately passed. But our condolences certainly go out to them, and it's always tough when one of the great ones goes.
Yeah, he'll be sorely missed.
Yeah,
he'll be sorely missed. So let's take a look ahead at what's coming up in professional pool. We got a great summer ahead of us. This WPBA has a couple of big events coming up, starting with the Soaring Eagle Masters next week, followed by the World Women's 8-Ball Championship in early July in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Then the World 9-Ball Tour has its Whirlpool Championship in Saudi Arabia in July, and the new Florida Open, another Matchroom WNT major, in August, with the Rally in the Valley being a ranking event late July and early August. So that's going to do it for us. For Jason Bowman, I'm Mike Pinozzo. Thanks very much for joining us. May all your shots be hangers, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time on Billiards Digest Live.